If you accidentally, say, slice your finger while you're chopping vegetables, your skin eventually heals.
Right, yeah. It just fixes itself.
Exactly. Or, if you have the misfortune of breaking a bone,
Right.
you give it a few weeks in a cast and it knits right back together.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It really is. Your cells are just constantly, quietly replacing themselves behind the scenes, so you don't even need any sort of science background to appreciate this.
No, not at all. Your body is, well, for all intents and purposes, it's this astonishing self-repairing machine.
Which brings up the big question, right? So why doesn't it just keep doing that forever?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question.
Like, why does the repair system over the decades just slowly start to lose the battle? Put simply, why do we age?
Well, I mean, it's the kind of question that is so baked into the human experience that it almost feels silly to ask.
Right. Because, well, of course we get old.
Exactly. Everything gets old. But when you pause and actually look closely at the biology, the actual mechanism of aging isn't obvious at all.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive.
I'm very excited for this one.
Me too. So we are unpacking excerpts from this incredible article, and it's simply titled, Aging is So Familiar That It Almost Feels Silly.
Such a great title.
It really is. And we're going to explore one of the, liveliest, most intensely debated questions in modern biology right now.
There is so much going on in this field.
So much. Okay, let's unpack this, because getting older isn't this, untouchable, mystical mystery anymore, is it?
No, it's not.
It's a biological story, and science is finally learning how to read the pages.
Exactly. And to truly understand why our self-repairing bodies eventually lose the battle, we first have to, discard a very common misconception.
Oh, right. The clock thing.
The clock thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people imagine that somewhere deep inside our brains, maybe our bodies, there's this master clock.
Like a literal timer.
Right. A single relentless timer that's just ticking down to a preset expiration date.
Or they think there is one specific, super crucial part of the body that just eventually breaks and brings the whole entire system down.
Right. It's this idea that we just run out of sand in an hourglass.
But the source material makes it pretty clear that aging is definitely not one single thing going wrong.
Not at all. There is no master clock.
Yeah.
Aging is what we call the whole picture.
My whole picture. Okay.
Yeah, it's the accumulated result of many different kinds of, physical wear and molecular damage that just builds up in the body over time.
So it's a bunch of little things.
Exactly. And scientists have actually organized this messy reality into a set of underlying processes. They call them the hallmarks of aging.
The hallmarks of aging. Okay, so to find the first major one, we need to zoom all the way in, right? Like right down to the cellular level.
Yes, I do, yeah. Down to the absolute basics.
So let's define a couple of fundamental terms for you here as we get into this. When we talk about DNA, think of it as the ultimate instruction manual for your body.
That's a perfect way to put it.
It's the molecular code that basically contains all the blueprints for making you function.
Right, and that vast instruction manual, it doesn't just float around loosely inside your cells.
That would be a mess.
A total mess, yeah. It is neatly packaged and tightly wound up into these structures called chromosomes.
Okay, so you have your DNA neatly bundled into these chromosomes, and at the very tips of those chromosomes, sitting right on the ends, is this protective cap, right?
Yes. And that protective cap is called a telomere.
A telomere.
And the telomere is it's crucial. It's honestly one of the most striking revelations in the whole study of aging.
How so?
Well, to understand why it matters, we have to look at the physical mechanics of how cells actually replicate.
Because they have to replicate, right?
Right. Every time a cell divides to make a copy of itself, which, it has to do to keep your skin healing and your bones knitting, it has to physically copy all of its DNA.
All of those instructions.
Exactly. But there's a biological catch.
Yeah.
The actual molecular machinery that, travels down the DNA strand to copy it, it simply cannot reach the very end.
Because the physical copying machine needs actual space to sit on the strand, right?
Yes, exactly.
Meaning it leaves this tiny, tiny margin completely uncopied.
Precisely. So because the machinery can't reach the end, a tiny, microscopic segment of that protective telomere cap is permanently lost with each and every cell division.
Wow. And the text uses such a perfect everyday analogy for this, which I love.
For shoelaces, right?
Yes. Think of the telomere like the little plastic tip on the end of a shoelace.
Such a good visual.
It really is. It's the thing that stops the lace from fraying and just unraveling into a total mess. But every time your cell divides, that little plastic tip gets worn down shorter and shorter.
And what's fascinating here is that this built-in limit is one of the primary ways our bodies essentially count out our biological timeline.
Like an internal counter.
Exactly. This shortening of the telomeres represents a hard physical boundary to how many times our cells can actually divide and renew themselves.
So eventually the repair machinery literally just runs out of protective runway.
It does. The tip is gone.
So, okay, if this cellular plastic tip is physically gone, the vital DNA code is exposed. What happens then? Like, what does a cell do when it senses its own instruction manual is physically unprotected? Does it just, politely self-destruct and clear out of the system?
You would hope biology would be that tidy.
That would be convenient.
But no. When a cell's telomeres run down to nothing, or if it suffers severe damage, it doesn't always die.
Okay.
Instead, it flips this sort of emergency switch and enters a very strange state of forced retirement. The scientific term for this is cellular senescence.
Cellular senescence. Okay, but I remember the researchers have a much more descriptive, honestly much spookier nickname for them in the text.
Oh, they do?
They call them zombie cells.
It is an incredibly accurate nickname, honestly.
Why zombies?
Because they refuse to die. But they aren't properly alive and working either.
So they're just in limbo.
Basically, they stop dividing, they abandon their designated cellular jobs,
Yeah.
but they absolutely refuse to clear off the stage. They just sit there taking up physical space in your tissues.
Okay, wait. If these zombie cells are basically broken, useless entities, why wouldn't the body just get rid of them immediately?
It's a great question.
I mean, we have entire immune systems designed to hunt down biological garbage. Why do we even have a built-in mechanism for this weird undead state? It just seems like a massive design flaw.
Well, the text provides a really crucial piece of nuance here. In small numbers, senescence is actually an incredibly brilliant, necessary defense mechanism against cancer.
Really? How does refusing to die stop cancer?
So think about what cancer actually is, right? It's uncontrolled cellular division.
Okay.
If a cell has suffered severe DNA damage or, its telomeres are dangerously frayed, you do not want that compromised cell to keep dividing and multiplying.
Right, because if it did, the errors would just multiply with it.
Exactly, and it would rapidly form a tumor.
Or
So by forcing that damaged cell into senescence, turning it into a zombie, the body essentially slams on the emergency brakes.
oh, wow.
It permanently locks the cell out of the replication cycle, stopping it in its tracks before it can turn cancerous.
So a zombie cell is basically trading a short-term fatal threat cancer for a long-term chronic one.
Yes,
Because keeping it locked down is only a good thing initially.
that is the ultimate trade-off, yeah.
Yeah.
Because as we get older, our immune cleanup crews become a lot less efficient, and these zombie cells start to pile up.
And they aren't just sitting there quietly taking up space either.
No, they are not. The source points out that these senescent cells actively leak out a steady stream of inflammatory chemical signals.
Like they're constantly broadcasting this chemical distress alarm that just irritates everything in their neighborhood.
Exactly. They leak these things called inflammatory cytokines, and that persistent chemical alarm irritates and literally damages the perfectly healthy functioning cells around them.
So a growing population of these, sulking, leaking zombie cells is gradually poisoning the surrounding tissue.
Exactly.
So they're actively making it harder for the healthy cells around them to do their actual jobs.
Yes, which just compounds the problem.
And of course, the zombie cells aren't the only thing going wrong as we age.
No, sadly not.
The text outlines a few other system-wide slowdowns. We have small, unfixable errors accumulating directly in the DNA itself, happening way faster than our repair enzymes can catch them.
Right. And we also have the decline of the mitochondria.
Oh, the powerhouse of the cell.
Do you remember middle school biology?
Right.
Yes, these are the microscopic structures inside your cells that act as power plants. They take the food you eat and the oxygen you breathe, and they convert it into chemical energy that the cell uses to function.
But the text notes that this energy conversion process isn't, perfectly clean.
It is not. The chemical reactions actually leak tiny, highly reactive byproducts.
Which they compare to sparks, right?
Yeah, think of them like stray sparks flying out of a furnace. Over the decades, these sparks bounce around and actually damage the power plant itself.
So the mitochondria become less efficient over time.
They do, they sputter. So the cells literally just have less energy to conduct their daily maintenance.
Man. So it is an energy crisis combined with cellular pollution.
A bad combination.
Definitely. Plus, we have the issue of proteins. And, we are not talking about protein as a dietary macro here, like in a shape.
Right, no. In biology, proteins are the physical microscopic tools that do the actual labor in your body.
They're the enzymes, the structural supports, the chemical messengers.
Exactly. And to function properly, a protein starts as this long string and folds itself into a highly specific three-dimensional origami shape.
Origami, I like that.
Yeah, think of it like a key that has to be shaped perfectly to fit into a specific cellular lock.
But as the years pass and the cellular environment gets more, chaotic, some of these proteins start to fold incorrectly.
They do. They lose their precise 3D shape.
And because they no longer fit into their locks, they start to stick to each other. They kind of clump together like tangled yarn.
Yes. And the text specifically notes that these misfolded protein clumps are the primary suspects in neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's.
Wow. So when you take all of this together, the shortened telomeres, the leaking zombie cells, the sputtering mitochondrial power plants, the clumping proteins, it creates a very specific physiological environment in the body.
It really does. The whole body basically begins to drift into a state of persistent, low-level, simmering inflammation.
And researchers have coined a very fitting term for this, haven't they?
They have. They call it inflammaging.
Inflammaging. It perfectly captures that background static of damage that our body is constantly trying and just slowly failing to fight off.
It's a great word for it.
But, it's not all doom and gloom in the text. Scientists are actually actively hunting for ways to combat this, all right?
Absolutely.
Specifically, they're targeting those zombie cells with a new class of drugs called senolytics.
Yes, senolytics are honestly one of the most exciting frontiers in aging research right now.
How do they work?
Well, the goal of a senolytic drug is to act almost like a highly targeted strike force.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it goes into the tissue, hunts down the specific chemical flags of the zombie cells, and selectively clears them out, leaving the healthy cells completely alone.
And the source mentions that in animal testing, clearing out these zombie cells has actually restored youthful function to older mice.
It has. It's incredible to see.
But we have to be clear for everyone listening, it is still early days, mostly confined to laboratory animals.
Right. We aren't quite there for humans yet.
Yeah.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the key takeaway here is that none of these single factors is the sole cause of aging.
It's everything all at once.
Exactly. It's the slow, steady accumulation of all of them, all interacting with each other, that we actually experience as growing old.
Which forces us to look at a massive, glaring biological puzzle. Something that the text says has genuinely bothered biologists for a very, very long time.
Oh yeah, the evolution question.
Exactly, because evolution and natural selection are notoriously ruthless, right? Mother Nature is totally obsessed with survival and efficiency.
Completely.
If a trait helps an organism survive, it gets passed on. If a trait causes a body to slowly fall apart, you would think it would be ruthlessly weeded out over millions of years.
You really would think so.
So why hasn't natural selection built us to just repair ourselves perfectly?
Well, the leading answer provided in our source material, it relies on looking at the world from evolution's incredibly cold accounting point of view.
Cold accounting, okay.
Yeah, because evolution really only cares about one thing: getting you to survive long enough to reproduce and successfully raise the next generation to independence.
Meaning, once you have passed on your genes and ensured your offspring can survive, you are basically off the evolutionary payroll.
Pretty much. From a purely genetic standpoint, yes. Evolution has a massive blind spot when it comes to old age.
Wow.
Your biological fitness matters far, far less once your reproductive years are behind you.
I guess we've put this in historical context, too. Like, think about our ancestors living in the wild tens of thousands of years ago.
Right. Totally different environment.
They were overwhelmingly being killed by predators, freezing to death in the cold, or dying of sudden infections or starvation long before they ever had the chance to experience things like gray hair, cataracts, or arthritis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the environment was so incredibly hostile, there was simply zero evolutionary pressure to build a human body designed to last a century.
It just wasn't needed.
Right. It would be an inefficient waste of biological resources. Evolution completely optimized us for a strong, vigorous youth because that was the absolute requirement to survive and reproduce.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because I want to try an analogy to make sense of what the text says about our genes here.
Well, let's hear it.
So Imagine you're buying a brand new car from a, let's say, somewhat cynical manufacturer.
Yep.
They give you a warranty, but it explicitly only covers the first 50,000 miles. Why? Because their data shows that historically, in the wild environment of the roads, most of their cars get totaled in accidents by 50,000 miles anyway.
Ah, I see. So why spend the money building an engine designed to last 200,000 miles?
Exactly. The manufacturer might even intentionally use cheap, hyper-combustible parts that make the car run incredibly fast and strong for those first 50,000 miles, completely ignoring the fact that those exact same parts will cause the engine to aggressively burn out and seize up at 70,000 miles.
Because in their cold accounting, the car was probably going to crash anyway.
Yes.
That is a brilliant way to understand how evolution actually treats our genes. It happily keeps genetic traits that provide an early benefit, because that early benefit is what gets you to survive and pass on your DNA.
Like the zombie cell mechanism.
Precisely. The mechanism that creates zombie cells is the cheap part in the car engine.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. It works flawlessly to slam the brakes on cancer when you're 20, ensuring you survive to reproduce. The fact that those same zombie cells pile up and cause devastating inflammation when you are 75, evolution simply does not care.
The manufacturer's warranty expired at 50.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As the text puts it, we grow old, in a sense, because our ancestors rarely live long enough for growing old to matter.
Man, it totally reframes the entire concept. Aging isn't a failure of our biology. It's just that our biology never had a reason to plan for our 80th birthday.
That's exactly it.
So what does this all mean? If evolution has essentially left us to fend for ourselves in our later years, where does that leave you, the listener, today? Where does it leave the whole dream of living longer?
Well, to answer that, the source draws a very sharp, very important line between two concepts that frequently get tangled up in the media. We have to definitively separate lifespan from health span.
Okay, lifespan versus health span. Let's break that down. Lifespan is just a raw number, right?
Right. It is simply the total chronological number of years you are breathing on the planet.
But health span is the metric that actually dictates your quality of life.
Yes. Health span is how many of those years you spend physically healthy, vigorous, cognitively sharp, and independent.
And the text makes a huge point to emphasize that rigorous researchers in the field of aging care far, far more about extending health span than simply dragging out lifespan.
Because the goal of aging research is not to add 20 years of frailty and medical dependence to the very end of your life.
The goal is to compress the period of decline, to be, 85 years old and still able to hike a trail, travel the world, and easily get down on the floor to play with your grandkids.
Exactly. That's the dream.
But how do we actually get there? Because right now, there is a massive multi-billion-dollar industry actively trying to sell us the fountain of youth in a bottle.
Oh, there absolutely is. And this is where we have to deliver the unglamorous truth straight from the source text.
Bring it on.
Despite all the thrilling progress happening in laboratories, like targeting zombie cells with senolytics in mice, or even partially resetting the biological age of isolated human cells in a petri dish, there is currently no magic potion available at the pharmacy.
Right. There's no secret pill that will magically fix your telomeres overnight.
The field of anti-aging attracts an immense amount of hype. There are all these expensive products, dietary supplements, and specialized clinics making these sweeping promises that are, frankly, miles ahead of the actual peer-reviewed clinical evidence in humans.
So the text explicitly warns us to maintain a healthy, rigorous skepticism about anyone who claims they can basically sell you youth.
Yes, heavily emphasized.
So if the magic pills are mostly hype for now, what are the actual levers we can pull to improve our odds? What actually works to protect our health span?
Well, the most powerful levers are incredibly familiar.
I feel like I know where this is going.
You probably do. They aren't glamorous, they definitely don't come in a shiny package, and they require actual daily effort. But they are profoundly effective at influencing those underlying hallmarks of aging.
Okay, let's list them out.
First, not smoking.
No sense.
Staying physically active, which actually physically stresses your mitochondria in a good way, forcing them to repair themselves.
Like exercise for the power plants.
Exactly. Eating a highly nutritious diet, maintaining strong social connections and a sense of community, and of course, getting proper restorative sleep.
So sleep, food, movement, and friends. They're basically the original senolytics.
For now, they truly are. Nothing you can buy currently comes close to the biological power of those basic human habits.
But even though the current practical advice is still basically eat your vegetables and get some sleep. The underlying paradigm of how we view getting older has completely shifted.
It really has.
And that is what I find so empowering about this entire deep dive. Aging is no longer seen as this untouchable, inevitable force of nature that we just have to quietly accept.
No, it is increasingly understood as a highly specific set of biological processes. It's written in the shortening of the telomere shoelace caps. It's written in the accumulation of those inflammatory zombie cells.
And it's written in the sputtering mitochondria and the cold reproductive logic of evolution.
Exactly. And as the text beautifully points out, anything you can understand as a mechanical process, you can at least begin to imagine influencing.
We are finally learning how to read the incredibly complicated story of why a self-repairing body eventually loses the fight.
This raises an important question, though, a deeply philosophical one to leave you with.
Ooh, okay.
Let's assume the laboratory science continues to advance. Let's say in the coming decades, human trials for senolytics succeed, and we actually figure out how to safely clear zombie cells in humans or, protect our telomeres from shortening.
Basically, if we can successfully hack the hallmarks of aging.
Exactly. If science eventually allows our health span to truly match our maximum lifespan,
Yeah.
if you knew for an absolute fact that you would have a vigorous, highly energetic, fully capable body at 90 years old, how differently would you plan your 40s and 50s?
Wow. That completely upends the psychology of a human life, doesn't it?
It really does.
You wouldn't be winding down your career in your 50s, you'd just be hitting the halfway point of your active life. You could start an entirely new profession at 60 and still have 3 decades of energy to dedicate to it.
The societal implications of that are just truly profound to chew on.
They really are. Well, we have covered a lot of ground today, from the microscopic unraveling of our DNA to the sweeping, ancient forces of human evolution. We want to thank you so much for joining us and exploring the science of yourself in this deep dive. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and remember to take care of that astonishing, self-repairing machine you call a body.